Hello guys, welcome to another video. So this one is all about using mixed media to your advantage. I'm going to be using the Ohuhu brush markers. I'm using Pastel Peach. You can't quite see it very well there. Camera would not focus for me. And then after that I'm using my Polychromos pencils. So those are the supplies I'm using. And honestly, I couldn't find a picture. So I'm using this one of the 4 most recent daughters, excluding Jodie because she wasn't around when this book was made. As you can see, I'm just laying down a base layer of markers. I will say this paper hates markers because they bled through quite a lot. And I know how dark it looks. It looks much better in real life, I promise. And when I actually put stuff it. The problem is with any kind of mixed media, any kind of artwork, it looks terrible at first, so don't worry about it. I mean, you can see how patchy this looks and how grey it looks, which is odd because this is not a grey marker at all. So what I'm doing, I'm just very lightly laying down these colours. I'm not trying to, what's the word? I'm not trying to provide like a huge tutorial on using the markers yet. That will come in a future episode. Future video even. But what I'm doing is just giving you these tools to help you if you have got markers and you want to use them to create a piece. I would highly suggest then adding in pencil work afterwards, because the issue you're going to come across is that markers can be patchy and so can pencils on their own, but when you put them together they are amazing. I will say I would have liked to use crayons as well, except I don't have any. And I don't think this paper could have taken much more than I put on it. So right now he's looking incredibly scary. So I'm going to go in and add some light shading with a different, darker peach colour. On video this looks terrible, this really does, but I can promise you it looks a lot better not through my phone camera lens. Anyway, you don't have to go mad with the shading or the blending, because anything you mess up can be fixed later on with the pencils. So when you're doing this kind of thing, it's important to have a light source in mind. I mean, that's just sense with any shading really. I just went for a very simple cell shaded look. Like, I didn't think of where the light source would be, I just went for normal, yeah, this is where shade is gonna fall. And I did that just to give it some kind of three-dimensionality. Obviously it's a lot easier when you're using a colouring book, because you don't have to worry about smudging the line work, you don't have to worry about what you specifically drew. You can just colour it, which is why I would suggest if you are going to do mixed media, definitely start with start with the colouring book, because they're the best things for it. If you are confident enough to draw the image yourself, then go for it. Otherwise, just use a colouring book, practice it. If you make mistakes, it doesn't really matter, because you're not messing up something you're going to post personally online. And as you can see, it still looks absolutely terrible, but that's okay. It's perfectly fine. So skin now is done, and I'm going to move on to the hair and the suit. You can see I'm not using a ton of different colours, and I'm actually using only 4 markers, because you don't need that depth of colour. You don't need to have about 50 different blends, 50 different shades of something. You just need the basics. This is just a base for the pencils to work their magic on. Now I will say I am not the authority on markers, I'm not the authority on pencils, I'm not the authority on using mixed media. I will have a link somewhere, either in the description or a card above, to Temi Danso Art, and she's amazing. 100% go and subscribe, go and see her videos, they are amazing. I would also say that ADC Art Attack does fantastic work on colouring and techniques, so 100% go and see him. These links will be down in the description below. And yeah, I mean, that's where I kind of learnt this technique. So again, it's looking patchy, it's looking horrible. The camera's picking up every tiny little hint of a problem. But as you build your layers more and more, it's going to look a lot better. And if you actually know how to colour in hair, it's going to look even better than this, because this is not good. That's why I use pencils later. I would say that mixed media is very, very hard to master. And in fact, I'm not a master of it, as I just stated. But the uses I found for it are when stuff like details need to be added to a piece. For this one, you'll see later on, the Doctor, the 10th Doctor, has a pinstripe suit. That's basically his defining feature. He has a pinstripe suit. Now, how do you do pinstripes when you're using markers? I could have used a pure alcohol marker, the blender marker, to erase or lighten some of the brown that I'm putting down here on the suit to create those lines. But that would have been messy, knowing me, so I went for, that's why I'm doing mixed media. I knew that I had to draw these details in, I had to do the pinstripes, I had to add a little bit more texture and shading to him. And you'll see that the patchiness of the suit and the hair I've left. I haven't made them a smooth blend. And that's because I want to kind of give the illusion that you're seeing the fabric ripple without actually drawing in ripples and shading them, which is a pain. Same with the actual shirt and tie. I've left them mostly unblended and kind of slightly patchy because it's the best way to sort of visualize a fold in the fabric. It's not the only way, but it's an easier way. So I'm just going in here with the blue, very simple. I might have messed up the actual colours, not of the shirt, not of the pinstripe suit, but of the tie, because I didn't test these colours beforehand, which you should always do. Do not make that mistake. Definitely test your colours. I eyeballed them, and I was using a mental reference of David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. Now, I am a huge Doctor Who fan. I am a huge 10th Doctor fan, so my mental image is accurate, but never ever rely on that. You can get it wrong no matter what. And if I was going to do this again, I would not have a mental reference. I would actually have a proper visual reference in front of me. So I definitely support that, looking up your references. And I support not worrying too much about what the artwork looks like when it's in progress. You'll see that throughout many artist videos, everything looks terrible at first. It really does. And that's because it's a process, it's in progress. It's not done the minute you lay pen to paper or pencil to paper. So here's our base layer. I'm just going in, fixing up a little bit more the shading, the lips, any colours I might have missed. So yeah, it's looking bad at the moment, I know. But that's perfectly fine. So once you've done this, you've got to let the markers dry quite a lot, because otherwise they're going to smudge. You can see the bleeding outside the lines. This paper is not for markers. It's just standard colouring book paper, so be careful of that. So now we go into pencils. I get a peach pencil and I just colour over in very light circles the area where I want the more shaded portion of his face to be. Actually, at this point I think I give up and I just coloured in the entire face pretty much. And doing that just gives you that texture, and it can hide, depending on how hard you're pressing, the terrible blends from the markers. it's the texture I'm looking for, not so much the fixing and the blending. So once you've done that, you go through very light circles, very tight circles. Don't do huge sweeping motions. Make sure that the pencil marks are very light, very soft, and very compact. You see it's looking better already, just from that. So now I'm gonna go for the sort of darker pinkish thing. And because I wanted to try this method out, I'm going for a sort of semi-crosshatch thing, where I'm just drawing little light lines, and then I'm going to try blend them out with the other pencil, the one I used before. This didn't really work, but I'm sure with more practice it would. So don't be afraid to experiment. You know, I mean, it's a colouring book at the end of the day. The entire purpose is to colour. So I tried a cross-hatching method, and I apologise, my hand's in the way here. But you can see it's just darkening up those areas quite significantly, actually. And I don't know whether I was just at this point trying to go for a moody look or trying to just blend out that darker pencil. I think it was a bit of both. But I quite like the look this gave to the face. But I was still bothered about the actual suit. This is why I went in with a white pencil, which is not as opaque as you might think. It leaves very faint lines, which is good. And I've forgotten how to draw pinstripes, so I was just drawing lines everywhere pretty much. And I never drew a straight line, I made it a bit wobbly, a bit wonky, and that's to give it more of a realistic look, because fabric is never fully straight, ever. And the reason I used a white pencil here, not a different colour, is that white would show up on the brown. That's one thing you've got to sort of pay attention to, is when you're doing this, make sure you pick colours that complement each other and that will show up. He already looks a lot better just with that. So just add in the details with the pencils. Don't go overboard. You've got a marker base. The pencils aren't gonna, well, the paper's not gonna show through the pencils. So you can afford to use that marker base to ease up on your pencil usage. I definitely did. And I would say that doing this is the easiest way to learn how to use certain art products, art mediums. I went in with a darker brown pencil to add some shading to the actual suit. You can see it doesn't affect the white pencil at all, and that's one thing I really like, is that you can deepen the shadows with the pencils. I wanted to use this pencil for the hair, and I think I did. But yeah, you can, if you do mess up a bit, it doesn't matter. And if you sort of miss a tiny bit of shading with your markers and you don't blend out properly, just use the pencil, because it'll work no matter what. So then once I've got that, just a tiny bit of shading on the suit, I go in with my sort of dark brown pencil again, and I try and figure out the eyebrows and the eyes. That is a disadvantage to colouring books, is that things aren't as big as you want them to be. Because I wanted those eyes and eyebrows to be a lot bigger so I could get in and do the details. But I couldn't, which is fine, totally fine. Sweeping motions across the hair, because messy hair is kind of the 10th Doctor's thing. I didn't want to mess with that too much, because also highlighting hair is not great and not my strong point. Not yet anyway. And then I just kind of went in with, I think it was after this, a yellow or a white pencil, in order to do the pattern on the tie, which I got wrong, which is why I say use a visual reference, because I know I got the tie wrong. I know it. I went in with the light blue just to add some texture to the shirt. Not much. The shirt didn't need much because it's a flat blue general dress shirt. It doesn't need a lot of texturing, doesn't need a lot of anything else. But this is mostly done now, and I would say that from where we started with the patchy markers, using the pencils definitely makes it look better. But 100% my takeaways from this: use a visual reference, use a colouring book to practice, choose your colours carefully, and then voila! Essentially, this is what you're going to end up with. If you're right at the start of your journey, then you're going to end up with something that looks a bit messy, but it doesn't look too bad. And that's it. Thank you very much, guys. I will see you in the next video.